Claymont City Board of Education regular meeting to order September 14, 2020 at 5:30 PM. Roll call.
Mr. Beckley.
Here.
Mr. Fawcett.
Here.
Mrs. Sproul. Here. Mr. Miles.
Here.
Mr. Trimmer.
Here. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting that is on the Zoom program here. So at this time, we have some administrative reports. You have Jody.
I do. I didn't. I printed it and then I left it, must have on the copier, but Jody reports out that so far we've had a good start with students and staff back to school after 6 months of empty buildings. The Restart Reset Task Force, building principals and custodians have worked hard tirelessly to ensure our buildings are ready and plans are in place to comply with the governor's orders for the health department recommendations. So she has some different things under professional development. On September 21st, Professional Development Day will be held to welcome Katie Novak. Katie is a renowned educational consultant on universal design for learning. A teacher's guide will apply universal design for learning into today's classroom. Amazing opportunity for us to have part of the school quality improvement grant. We will follow up with this training with a book study as part of our professional learning this next year. District report cards. The state will be releasing the Ohio school report cards on Tuesday, the 15th. This year, the report cards will have no grades or ratings due to the suspension of the test and this coming spring. Teacher evaluations, due to House Bill 197, we will still be following the framework of 1.0 for OTES. We'll be working this next year to get into the 2.0 systems and prepare for the following year. These changes prohibit the school district from using value-added, high-quality student data and student growth measures as part of an evaluation process for teacher and principal evaluations. And on a side note, last month we adopted 2 board policies to reflect that we weren't using student growth measures a part of that. The district leadership team met on September 4th to develop the school improvement plan for 20 to 23, a 3-year plan. We will receive a copy of this to review at your October board meeting. Our next meeting will be held for our October 30th of 2020. In the preschool news, the preschool has paid spots available for the 2021 school year. We have lost enrollment to several families due to the COVID pandemic. We're currently accepting applications. The cost of paying families range from $40 to $95 or $55 weekly, depending upon the family's income.
Any questions regards to Jody's report? If not, we'll move to Mrs. Lynn.
Okay. I hand out some, you want to take one of those down on the slide? Give your note. What's coming around first? Well, first off, I sent my report out Friday, I think. There was a lot of different things. We've had very busy time in the tech world. A lot of, I think our biggest challenge there is supporting the remote learners at home. We knew it was going to be. I think Bill and Chris do a really good job of just taking the calls whenever. They don't really complain about getting calls outside their work hours and trying to help whenever they can. It's just hard on the phone when you're talking with maybe a grandmother and they don't know tech and you're trying to get them, you've never seen their equipment, you're trying to get it to work. So we're kind of case by case working through those, and some of those tickets are dying down, but there was a lot going on there the first week and into this week of school. I outlined, a lot of the different projects that are going on, but what I wanted to mostly talk about tonight was the high school roof and the stadium. So I wanted to go ahead and do the roof first. What I handed out was the bids. We had 9 people come out and look at the high school, and we're up on the roof and everything, doing the pre-bid meeting, and 5 bid on the project. What you're seeing on this sheet, and this is for the metal roof that we talked about. That was what I had heard. That's our ultimate of what we wanted to do. The total costs are from low to high listed here. Just a couple notes on those. We had asked the companies to only bid material. I'm sorry, only bid labor, no material. We were buying the material on state term contract. Okay, so in doing that, like the state term versus list is like 1.5% discount. But also, if you factor in, and I don't know how much that would be, what people they would mark up if they got their material and then marked it up and added it into their bid, let's say 5%. We're saving maybe 6.5% on the material side. So they just bid labor and any of the miscellaneous things that they needed to put the materials on. Let's see.
Yeah, we had to pay sales tax on the materials.
No.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Nope. In the way the contract is worded, we had the materials company went through all the bids, basically making sure, did they include everything that was needed? Was the materials that they listed all vetted that it was a good bid? So we vetted all those. You can see listed what they are, big range of labor. Materials were close. And I guess the only other thing, it's 107,500 square foot of roofing, so it's a big project. Any of the missing, if they forgot something, that's on them to pick up. We're under there are no, it's the way the contract will be written. They're not change orders because they forgot some things on the project. They're on the hook for any of those changes or missing materials. I listed the, alumni roofing. I kind of listed a little bit of information about them at the bottom, some of the project they've worked on. I have left messages with some of the references they were given. I have not had a call back yet, so I would like to at least, have some conversations with some of these people that they've worked with. And then I guess the only other thing about this project that's maybe a little bit different is I feel we got, I think we were pleased. This is a lot of money, I know, but.
Could you see the amount, just because we're looking at it?
I'm sorry, yes, for everybody. The total amount of the lowest bidder, the labor is $515,000. Materials are $781,505.67 for a total of $1,296,505.67.
What's the warranty?
There is a 30-year end-to-end warranty, no questions asked. They feel it's a 50-year roof. They're included in that is also the yearly inspections and, any kind of just looking at that yearly to make sure there's no issues. If there is a problem, we basically call the material company and they take care of that. We don't have to get into the material company. Garland is who they are. They are taking care of the warranty, and they're also taking care of any of that follow-up as far as there is no battle between who put it on and their product. They have vetted, they said everyone that actually bid on our project were seasoned people that have put their materials on. They felt comfortable with all of these roofing companies working with their product. So I guess and then the most important thing, I guess, is this is the color. I don't know if you guys have seen this, if you want to pass that around. What we were going for is a dark brown, it's called dark bronze, I think, is really trying to match the windows. And because we're not replacing the soffit, we're not replacing the downspouts, we looked at all those, they're in great shape. That would have cost a lot more money. So trying to match that, and that was the closest we could get to that.
To the downside.
Yes, it might be a little bit off, and there's probably some fading of that downspouting
Sure.
that's happened over the years too. But so that's what we were going with. So I think We worked on with the committee, the Building and Grounds Committee has looked at this and looked at all the numbers. And is there anything else, Steve or Austin, you wanted to add about this that we discussed or I forgot?
No, you covered it fairly well.
Okay.
Well, when we went out for the levy, we always talked about, we were gonna be putting on a roof, it was gonna be around $1 million. This is roughly around where we were kind of projecting from the get-go. We weren't projecting the high bidder of $2,436,211.41. Just wanted, so for those listening at home, the lowest bidder is $1.2 million less than the highest bidder. But as Beth's already said, Garland is the materials, and all of these companies have placed Garland products on roofs before, and they said that they're all very competent construction companies for roofing. So I was hoping for a lower number you always hope for a lower number, but this was right around the ballpark. The guy said we probably would have been getting something about $1.4 million roof is what he was thinking we were probably would be in the ballpark, but we're lucky enough to have a low bid of that total there.
I guess the only other thing is that just to put everything out there, we also did ask them to bid on the shingle option. And there were 3 that bid on that. The lowest bidder for the metal was not the low bidder on asphalt, but the lowest asphalt shingle, and that is a 20-year shingle warranty, is $505,830.40. And so when you do the math of, even if you said 40, let's say 40 for the metal, you're timesing this by 2, that puts you over $1 million, and you're also calculating the increase of it's not going to be $505,000 20 years from now with the labor and everything else. So it puts it to be, that kind of puts it in perspective. But I mean, if there is, any discussion that is not what you want to do budget-wise, there is the shingle option as well. And that was
505,000 was labor and.
that's labor and materials. And that would have been the lowest bidder for, I didn't put that on, the lowest bidder for shingle was Revere Roofing, which was 3rd on the metal. They were 1st on the shingles. And I didn't add that in because it's really hard to pick a metal option. Yeah, I think Kim and I were discussing using the money that we're using from this is a 30-year loan. I just really don't want to recommend something that's going to last longer than that we're using this money to put on. So.
Okay, the committee met with Beth Friday, Steve and myself, and we're recommending to go with the metal roofing. I would entertain a motion because we need to get started on this pretty quick. So I would entertain a motion that we accept the bid from Aluminum Roofing for the high school. And that's a 30-year end-to-end and a 50-year on the expectation. Yeah, on the roofing. So I'll make that motion that we accept the bid of Aluminum Roofing so that we can get it lined up for the high school.
I'll second, but I want to make sure everybody understands that we still think this is a better option financially because of the inflation and so forth. So, and if we can get 50 years out of this roof, which would be the expectation, it does make a lot more sense to go with metal. On the surface, it looks like shingle would be a better option, but when you really dig into it, I do think metal is better.
And even if, we had talked about that, Stevie, you can jump in anytime. Don't be backward there.
Oh, no,
Okay.
no.
So, we talked about the shingles and all that. And, it could be a 20-year or 30-year, whatever. But do we want to come back and redo that whole thing at that time? So that's why, we felt that this would be the best route to go. And Beth, correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but once we pass this, if we do, then they could start on the gymnasium side in November.
Yes,
Is
so I
that
think,
correct?
yeah, I think we would come back with the actual, like at the next board meeting, I'd have the actual contract. You guys can, we work on that, get that all drafted up, so it's be ready to be approved at the next board meeting. And one of the things that we did, because we did this hoping this would drive the cost down, is not say, it's this big of a project and you have to do it over the summer, where they have to throw a lot of labor on, and we thought that would jack up the cost. So we would start in the back in the gym during school.
Will that cover the choir room that we've had so much issues with?
We're gonna start in
Depending
the
on
gym.
winter?
and Yeah, I
Okay.
think we're gonna stop. I don't want the academic wing done because of the noise during school,
Mhm.
which should be, across the front here. But those other two big roofs, so that would be the choir, the auditorium, the
Then we
gym.
had a lot of leaks. in
All,
that. That was
yeah,
a lot of
up
concern.
to that point, that wall is what we would do during school. They may have to, that's what we talked a little bit with the committee. If they start in November, if we have a good winter like last year, they may be able to fly through that and get that done in, a couple months, and then they just come back in summer.
Mhm.
If not, they might have to stop and then, because of weather, and then keep going once it breaks. But that's what we're anticipating doing with this company. They were good with that.
Do we have any other questions for Beth before we vote?
Great job.
If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Beckley,
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett, Mrs. Sproul,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
and Mr. Trimmer.
Yes.
Motion carried. So Beth, you can go ahead and get started on that.
Okay.
All right. Do you have anything else for
Yep,
us?
stadium stuff, so.
Okay.
Okay, we've had a lot going on with stadium projects, really trying to kick that off. And teachers can do this quickly. Figure out how many.
They also don't have a mask on, and they can use their fingers.
Yeah, I know, what you want to do, so. Okay, Mr. Wrench, myself, Kim, the stadium committee, we've been meeting a good bit, just on different things about the stadium. One of the biggest thing that they've been focused on, and I know I did the wrong thing, which is hand this out right first, because everybody will look at this first, but I don't want you to look at that yet. Is that it was really, the focus has just been on is the budget good, and they just keep going through and peeling those layers of the onion back. And can you do this? Can you do that? This costs this is that. So we're making, answering lots of questions and doing through that, but they're really focusing on the field house. And the reason being is there is, it will be a prefab building that has to get ordered. So we got to order it like this week to stay on timeline. So I've got some colors here. But then there'll be the shell, it comes as a shell, then we'll be building the walls and everything inside. Okay, so that's what we've been working with, which is, what wall has to go all the way to the ceiling, what maybe can go halfway up, different things like that to save money. What has to be waterproof ceilings, what are going to be open, areas that are open. So just keeping going through that process. But we met last Friday, we looked at all the colors they had. And as I get close, these are the colors that the committee chose. So we've got a brown roof, and it's dark bronze, so it's as close to the high school roof as we could get. This is the wall color, and I'm using white just to kind of throw in there, because as we talked with the bleachers, we felt the bleachers would be brown, the skirting on the bleachers. So if you're out looking, you're seeing those brown stripes. And the press box would be white. So if you have a building that's pretty close to the press box and it's that color with the brown roof, this is kind of the look of it. So I'll pass it around to the people that haven't been on the committee to see that. I just need to know if there are any objections to those colors. They didn't really have a lot with the tan. You think tan's a pretty popular color. It was kind of hard to match what I thought in that area. But we also have to bring Bowerson Shale is coming in next Friday with brick samples. So we don't have those yet, but we have to tell them on Wednesday what color they're gonna order that building. So we're keeping basic, you know, that what, our thoughts are, we pick up some of the color with some of our lettering, our logos, things like that. Okay, all right?
But in the prefab building, the interior, the exterior walls, but on the interior, some of them will be straight block. The restroom stalls, shower stalls will be, what about 4-inch
4-inch
block?
block in between.
So we didn't want to not to come off wrong. We wanted to make sure we kind of did it right as possible. So we're not putting in those 1-inch restroom partitions. So we were putting in the cement block will be a lot better over time than those partitions.
Trying to
Yeah.
go through that. So, okay, so that's going on. So thank you. Got all that. Nobody's gonna think, oh no, okay. And all the project managers think orange is our official color. So they keep saying that, orange is a surcharge. And I'm like, that's not our color. It's brown and white. So we should be not having to have custom colors. So, but then what this sheet then is going to, I'm kind of switching gears a little bit more, which is the demolition of what we have to do right after football season. So and this is just all the things I could think of right off the top of my head as we were going through and kind of when we could do those. My green is kind of means kind of when we can do it. We haven't done anything with it. Yellow means we've started, and I actually moved that down. We only have one thing started, which is the track trailer, but kind of when we wanted to do those and when they were done, and then I color them red once they're done. But there's a lot of different things we have to get done before they come in, which they would like to come in November and start that project. So I've been in contact with the band boosters about the concession stand, asking if they can get the one small concession stand, getting that cleared out, putting that in the other, so that'll be good. We've worked with Wood Electric has been in to look at how these buildings are tied together and how they got to do some rewiring of electric to still keep our wrestling weight room building operational while they tear the other down, things like that. We are proposing that wrestling moves to the intermediate, and because not ideal, but we got to have a place to put all of these things we're taking out, that we're saving, lockers and all of the things that are going to be in that building.
Part of that though isn't just because of the space. It was they had to cut the water off, so there would be no showering for the kids' practice. So that was the whole gist of it. So the kids, when they wrestle, they have to shower after wrestling practice to stop disease, ringworm, etc. So with no water, we had to look at an alternative. We don't have enough gym space here with all the practices to keep it at the high school or practice at the middle school, or so our biggest solution with enough space was to put it at the intermediate. The north side little gym's not big enough to put 2 mats in. So I know that Beth has already talked to Rich Strukin, the PE teacher at the middle school. I've already talked to Travis Poland about space and where we need to go. So it was just a matter of rolling up the mats, putting them on the stage at the intermediate, and then rolling them back out every night. But they do have shower facilities there. So that's the biggest thing for those guys.
So if you're hearing some things, just understanding why we're doing what we're doing. And, it's not going to be, everybody's got to give a little bit as we try to work through this. My thing is just, keeping the kids safe. There's going to be a construction zone. Our idea is to keep the weight room open and having the kids enter on that end. In even worst case, there will be some porta-johns there because of like all of the construction, things like that. So even if our water's cut for those 1 bathrooms, we still can have some restroom facilities for them. They'll have to leave the building and go out and use those, but in the short term, that's what we'll have to do.
So the equipment gonna have, it's gonna be moved eventually, right? Could we utilize north side for the weight room so that
Nothing there at all.
Yeah.
We haven't thought of that. We actually haven't thought of that. Because that'll be-
Cheerleaders practice, but
That's
they're
the
practice.
cheerleaders practice
Cheerleaders
there right
practice in
now.
that area. And it's smaller than what they currently have.
It's a pretty, it seems like a big building, but it's
You know,
pretty
the
small.
the ones that took over Boniface are allowing people to use up there for cheerleading as well. It's a big area, so maybe just a consideration.
Yeah.
that our
That might be
cheerleaders
something,
can
I
move
mean,
up
Look at.
You know, and I mean, you know, if we think all this, I mean, you know, it's just like, I just don't want, you know, you think about when this high school was built and all of the, you know, construction and all the things, you know, you don't want kids, anybody getting hurt or anything in a construction zone, and they'll have it all marked off and everything, but I think that's a good idea. We
Yeah,
could
that
look
gives
into
a
that.
solution if we do have to move them out. We wouldn't move every weight, but enough for them to get their workouts in.
Yeah.
So it could possibly be an
Okay.
option.
Okay, we'll look at that. So anyway, it's just, you know, so I think what we're gonna try to do as we get into October, is as like we have Fridays where we have some of the extra people that might be bus drivers or whatever, that if I can get people to the stadium on Friday, we may be doing some of these pre-things, anything that we can do. We have a lot of clean out to do, you know, just going through things and
Bring up about cheerleaders. I know that they had even talked about utilizing the middle school gym too, because it had more room for their mats. So just an idea, and then moving maybe softball, baseball somewhere else. Like, I think they had talked about the intermediate, but I don't know if even with batting.
They can't do the intermediate. We
Intermediate
looked at that.
don't work because, yeah, Beth looked at that last
We don't
year.
have any
and actually
brick.
pulling the walls in when they would run the cable, so the walls aren't sturdy enough.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Just
it's
a
just
thought.
Yeah. So, and I guess, you know, it'll change, I'm sure it'll change again, but these are all of our things as a district that we're responsible for doing prior to this project kicking off. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that, and I'll be looking for volunteers and just as we kind of coordinate in doing this. So any other questions then about the stadium? And I guess that's,
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, I mean, as far as when we get closer and closer, many hands make light work. So if there are, I know community wants to get this started, so if we have Fridays that we need to climb up on the press box and lower down speakers or just clean up stuff. I know Dan Pacine last week said, you know, there's stuff underneath the current bleacher area. He said hasn't been touched since he's been over there, so he doesn't know, you know, whether it's old paint, we recycle it, or there's just stuff that needs cleaned up. So, I mean, if anybody's interested, and if you guys know anybody interested that you want to pitch in, then we'll get that stuff knocked out pretty quick, so.
When the demolition of actual like brick, I know I just talked with a few people that for memento, like memory, like to hand the brick out or maybe put a claim out seal on it and sell them or distribute them or something.
I don't know the timeline on that. That goes to whenever football's officially finished, we have everything cleaned up. I know they gotta rent a crane
Okay.
to take the press box down, but the quicker they get, you may touch on that.
I really haven't talked too much with then I've been more worried about the utilities and where they're all going, so we don't break something that we shouldn't when they tear things down, but I mean, are they gonna be, I'm not sure in what state those bricks are gonna be when they come down.
Right.
That's what I'm,
You know, we had a pile when they took down
I mean.
the north side
we should
school
have
building,
some,
so
but
we
I don't
should
think
have
we're
some.
gonna have like,
Right, yeah.
and they're
There
gonna,
should be
It was
some
just a thought.
available.
There should be
People
some.
had brought it up.
We'll have to talk to the
yeah,
bidder.
I think we could ask them
About
about,
that.
bidder about doing that.
Because if they're bidding in to be able to, the bidder wants to, that we've talked to, wants to use all those brick for oil path roads. So, I mean, if we talk to them and say, yeah, they were.
Yeah, they're not thinking salvage, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, shouldn't say it, but I will, but you know, honestly, people can probably go across there and pull one out.
Right before they come. Yeah.
Here, catch it.
But as soon, you know, as soon as we get completion of football season.
Yeah.
And get the electric moved, then I know he wants to
Yeah,
get in
that's why I
there.
said, that's why I was trying to
So,
lay out this timeline.
yeah,
And then I think the only other thing is what we noticed if, when that, I don't even know what you would call it. It's that it's white on the outside, vertical wood thing that's tucked between the small concession stand. And when you entered in, that's the entrance into the locker room where you know what I mean? And that's coming down. Well, if you go into that, that's the kind of the trainer's room. That back wall of brick is painted, but that's going to be shown. That'll now be the outside wall of that building. So, you know, if we know anyone that maybe is an artist or something, you know, it's painted. So we're gonna have to paint it, leave it painted. And maybe we could do something mural looking thing on that. Because it's a really not nice shade of.
You did the mural, junior high gym.
Who did? The gentleman?
The Barnstormer painter.
Yeah, Brian Watkins hired him. It's very nice.
Unbelievable.
I don't know. I mean, I may talk to the art teacher. I don't know if we have any talented kids or something, but that might be an opportunity there. Cause when I thought of that today, I'm like, oh, that's gonna be seen from the outside now and it's painted and then the rest of the building's brick. It's not gonna look good. So we might
Do we
have
have
to.
like I was just thinking of like a drone picture from before and after before we do any demo of our current stadium.
Yeah, what about the lady that's going around town? Maybe she could do a picture of what we have now,
We actually have a
right
picture.
there, as something for history.
We have a picture of it when it was first built. And I have that in my office and I've just been kind of keeping it. It's an 8x10. Jeff Mahaffey had provided that to us. And I didn't know if maybe that was something to somehow incorporate somewhere, you know, from when it was built to now it's built
Did it have the
again.
press box and all that in it?
No.
That's
no.
why I thought maybe just take a shot now before we redo it.
Okay, that's what I did.
I could probably get Connor, he has a big
Save a drone.
drone and he takes pictures all the time.
Let him have it.
Fly over.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Kind of the
I'll
faces
get
up.
ahold of him to do that. Anything else, Beth?
No, that's all I have.
Any questions for Beth? No, thanks, Beth. Okay,
No, no problem.
thank you. Okay, Ryan?
Just wanted to add, Tracy Peterman emailed you probably about 1 o'clock this afternoon and said, drop-offs are going very well for busing. Pickup time, she's trying to get to 5 buildings within a 30-minute time period. So she's really working hard to get that narrowed down. I will say the teachers and principals have been very helpful and are working and staying. I know one building had them till almost 4 o'clock on the first day. Now the other day it was down to about 3:30. So we need to get that down to 3:10. But there are some teachers that have volunteered to stay late in exchange for maybe not coming in as early. So we kind of have that covered, but we still want to get it down to 3:10. She was discussing possibly, I know Transportation Committee, whether we end up looking at possibly in the future having double busing. Middle school, high school go at one time, and then the elementary age students go at a little bit later. Dover, Philly do double routing, so it does help. So, you know, our high schoolers will probably start about the same time, but our elementaries will start probably more toward 9. If that's something that she struggles with this year, is keep getting this narrowed down. So,
Do we need more staff for that or not?
actually with double routing, no. We'll employ our bus drivers a longer period of time, but you may not need as many bus drivers, but they may be getting 8 hours a day instead of 6 hours a day or 4.5 hours a day because of double routing. So then we'll have to work on that if that's the route that we go. But Tracy's working hard to get it down to 3:10. So when everybody dismisses. So I laid in your pictures back in February, we set the mission, vision, core beliefs. We also talked about the equity, academic, social, emotional support, extracurricular pride. And we also accepted the portrait of a graduate. Each building has some of these. There's some physically laying in here that aren't hung just yet, but I was telling Mr. Fawcett earlier that some buildings have them up already. They do look very sharp. Hanging, they're very large, so they're eye-catching. But tonight we have the an item to officially accept our mission, vision, and core beliefs. Our vision was what we set back in February, a Claymont community providing a pathway for a lifetime of success for every student. And then the mission is Claymont Schools is a community that develops one student at a time by teaching empathy, communication, integrity, responsibility, perseverance, and critical thinking skills. And then I'll go through the rest, but so we'll adopt those officially tonight, and those are being hung in buildings as we speak today, so. And then last is start of school. Every principal said, hey, think school started off great. Knock on wood. School started wonderfully. He said, kids are doing awesome. Staff is awesome. He said some of them say the best start we've had in a long time. As Jody's report said, we haven't been in for 6 months, but the kids are doing a phenomenal job with their masks. And so far we haven't had any issues with that. I wanted to share our enrollment numbers from last year, this year, compare where we are. The first sheet that I have is 1920. In 2021, we are actually down 31 students as compared to last year. We had officially 1,804 students last year. We have 1,773 students. Currently, Mr. Seibert said this morning, he just had found another kid. So these are changing every day where kids haven't signed up for school. So the primary is down 29 students from last year, but we're getting more here every so often. We're down at the elementary, 24 students. We're up at the intermediate by 10. We're up at the middle school by 1, and we're up at the high school by 33. So the subtotals there for this year is 1,655. You take the Career Center kids that aren't factored into students who are physically at the high school, it gives us that 1,773 students. So the back is who's doing what. Preschool strictly face-to-face, and as the report for Mrs. Miles was that we still have some openings for preschool if there's anybody is interested. Primary is 179 face-to-face. We have 37 remote, 18 online. The elementary 193, 44 remote, 17 online. Intermediate 211, and as you see, 62 remote, 14 online. Middle school 317, 90, and then 9. And in the high school, 363, 36 are Buckeye or CCP, or they go to Kent. Remote 84 and 29 online. So that the totals there, you have 317 students are remote, 87 online. We still have the total of 1,773. So, and Kim had polls and reports, was asked about it. Anybody used the Ed Choice? And we had it as a reports this morning, but you want to elaborate on some of those?
Yeah, there was no vouchers used last year or this year as of these reports. Now, what I pulled, this was from our September 1st foundation payment, which looks at fiscal year 20 numbers. And then I pulled like January's of this year, which would have been the data from December 27th of 2019. So this would be what we actually get our funding from the state. So there was a total of in January of 1,980.31 students, and we're down at 1,969.31. So we did lose some. We do have a couple that is on the John Peterson. Last year, there was 2, we're down to 1 this year. They attend the Lake Center Christian School. It also gives some community school numbers. There was, let's see here. There were 34 last year, and there's 35 this year. And then I took a look at open enrollment. There they are. So last year, we were looking at, in was 120, out was 273 at that January timeframe. And we had lost $917,544.24 last year. This year, as of right now, they're showing the funded in is 121, out is 272, for a projection of losing 909,292.68 for this year in open enrollment.
So in essence, that's about $1.8 million in 2 years. And just an open enrollment loss. So
It's got better.
it did get better, and we actually did have a couple phone calls from families about wanting to open enroll for this year. So once they get their paperwork in, I'll look to talk to the principals and they look to accepting them. So that'd be 4 more, but yeah, we are higher than where we were, but I'm a little concerned with our numbers at the primary and the elementary, having lost so many this past year. Whether that's are due to size, our times and people leaving due to employments, to finding it someplace else, or that they've left to go to another district for other purposes. But that trend data we'll have to keep up. We want to be able to do reports monthly here to the board regarding our attendance and where we sit that way. But I don't want it to continue the trend data that we always are declining. Then the intermediate drops another, we want to be able to keep our numbers consistent. But high school numbers being up 30 some students is very helpful. And we did pick up a lot of Buckeye kids from last year. We were 130 Buckeye kids last year. We're only 118 students at Buckeye this year. I think the CCP course has helped keep kids here physically. And I was talking to Mrs. Kahn earlier today. We're talking about the credit flexibility and working with kids, that being able to kind of put up a program where by having work experience, we give them credit or participate in class. So then we have an avenue or pathway for all kids. So I just want to go to work. Well, we can figure that out for you your senior year. You only need X amount of credits, and we'll work on figuring that out.
There's like no such thing as OWE anymore.
There is not.
So
We
this
can-
would kind of be along those lines.
We got credit flex, we can work on that. We can work with the agricultural department, and there is agricultural business, and they can do an independent study and work. And also the business class that we have is another option that they could go into the business. They still have to physically kind of take some of those classes, but they could be released earlier in their day to be able to do so. And you have to give them 5 credits. So credit flexibility gives us a lot more than that.
Do you feel at the primary that it could be potentially people just with the pandemic, keeping kids home and not sending them? Okay, I didn't know. Do we get a number like from the community that are in like Head Start and stuff like that should be transitioning to preschool or kindergarten? I'm sorry.
I don't recall a
Do we
number
get any data
from,
like
I
that?
don't recall a number from Head Start last year, but I mean, I could get one of those. The ones this morning when I was talking to Mr. Seibert, it was, they just didn't enroll. So they just missed the deadlines and stuff like that. So they kind of wondered, school started, and so they
Okay.
got enrolled.
Well, but I mean, really, the bottom line is the open enrollment in and out numbers. So there must be less kids that live in our district to attend that building, right? I mean,
Right.
because the open enrollment numbers were too bad. I mean,
I wasn't implying that it was open enrollment. I was just implying that people with the pandemic may not be sending their kid to kindergarten, say they're only 5 or something like that. They might just be keeping them home this year.
I will say
are
that
we counting kids as students who are doing online only?
we're counting anybody's, if they're either remote or online, we're counting them in our pocket.
Because of the pandemic.
But I will say this, though, that we did have a lot more than last year, people choosing to just do homeschooling.
Yeah.
So that does play a factor into it. Now, is it 33 students? No, but it would reduce that number more so.
Is homeschooling, are they in the open enrollment numbers? They're not.
No, the parents have their own curriculum and teach them at home. So they're basically educating themselves at home. So that has increased from last year to this year and strictly due to pandemic.
Move
I'll
on
move
to,
on and I wanted to commend the following for donations. We're very grateful to have received from the Rosenberry Foundation $37,146 towards the bleachers for our stadium project. John Mary Beth Goins of $1,000 toward the stadium project. Stepping Stone Facility, they made our bus signs. You may have seen those on Facebook for us for the bus stops. So you guys signed some thank you cards and those have already been in the mail. The grants, the Rainbow Connection, we want to thank them for the purpose of school reopening. We did have some grants that came to $20,500.
all right, any questions for the superintendent before we move on? Okay. Next item is executive session. Entertain a motion that we go into an executive session to discuss employment and letter E, matters required to be kept confidential. And I will make that motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Mr. Tremor,
Are you doing 7 also?
excuse me?
Are you doing 7?
Number 7.
Number
Yeah.
7 also?
Yes.
Just so we have
Yep.
one more.
I just slipped right over that one. I had an X there. Yeah. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Beckley,
Yes.
Mrs. Sproul,
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Trimmer.
Yes.
6:17.
packet, this, for the month of August, you see that we ended a little bit better this time. We got our property taxes settlements in and didn't have to touch our savings as much. So year to date through 2 months, we're sitting at almost 1.5 million revenues over expenditures. So that's good with a balance of about 7.3 million right now. So I need a motion to accept the financial reports, the payment of the bills, the minutes of the regular board meeting of August 17th. There was one then and now certificate that was over the $3,000 threshold. And offhand, I can't remember what it was, but all for the unemployment benefits for June. Or we've seen an uptick because of not being in school and the people being rifted or filing their unemployment. So that was that. And then the class intent form for the class of 2022 rolled over to the class of 2021. And then I had to create some funds for the 003s, the permanent improvement, which will be the receipts from the property taxes when they start coming in next year. And then the 507, 508, and 510, those are all the coronavirus relief funds that we were getting grants from. So I can have a motion in a second.
We have okay. Mr. Trimmer and Michelle. Any questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Sproul,
Yes.
Mr. Trimmer,
Yes.
Mr. Beckley,
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett,
Yes.
and Mr. Miles.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And then I've also got the permanent appropriations and the estimated revenues. Fiscal year 21, to send those to the county auditor. So I need a first and a second on that one.
Entertain a motion. Mr. Miles, do we have a second? Mr. Trimmer, roll call, please.
Mr. Miles?
Yep.
Mr. Trimmer?
Yes.
Mr. Beckley?
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett?
Yes.
Mrs. Stroll?
Yes.
Motion carried. We go to the superintendent's recommendation.
The motion and seconds for the items, approve the district mission vision statement for beliefs as we presented earlier. Reduction of force of Dusty Milburn. We had a student leave, so we had some bumping around with our educational aides. And unfortunately, Dusty Milburn would be ripped. Approve the substitutes. We have certified of 2, and we have a list of classified substitutes as presented there. Approve the following non-athletic supplemental contracts. Nicole Sankey, LPDC, Julie Beach, gift coordinator, Kelsey Barnhart, year 1 resident educator. She's going to work with our new FFA teacher. April Kreitz Nisley, she's going to be working with Brittany Montanez at the preschool. Ian Miser's working with Travis Houghton here at the high school, and Sarah Robinson show choir. Sarah's going to come back at the end of the day. There's a group of students who would like to participate in choir or chorus. So she's going to come back after school's hours and work with that group of kids so they can get some choir time. There is a stipend for show choir. Not that I anticipate under the coronavirus of them going out and performing, but Sarah wants to be able to do that for those students. We had an open MOU for OC 930 for 5,000 retirement incentive for the 1920 school year. Let's see, we had cooperating teachers from Kent Tusk, and those students are as listed, as well as the cooperating teacher. The following personnel were paid $20 per hour for Edgenuity training. That's the online curriculum we're using for preschool 5 this year. For those students who are not using remote or coming face-to-face. Brian Watkins is a fall athletic volunteer for the 2020 fall season. John McCluskey for weight room supervision for fall, winter, and spring. Accepting the resignation of Morgan Tantarelli as 8th grade volleyball coach effective September 3rd. And then approve Ronna Tokolsch as 8th grade volleyball coach for retroactive back to September 4th. And those are approving our grading scale policy of 6.13 for the board policy.
Okay. Entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's report. I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Miles. Roll call.
Mr. Beckley,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett,
Yes.
Mrs. Sproul,
Yes.
and Mr. Trimmer.
Motion carried. Any new business? No? Okay. Next meeting would be October 12th, 2020 at 5:30 at the Claymont High School Library or at the central office.
If Zoom capabilities are operable at the central office building, we can do it there. So
Okay. I need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Trimmer,
Second?
Mr. Fawcett, roll call.
Mr. Trimmer,
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett,
Yes.
Mr. Beckley,
Yes.
Mrs. Sproul, Mr. Miles.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried, 7:54. Adjournment.
What did you guys decide on?